All right, hello everybody. My name is Daniel Blumberg and I'm a student at the University of Dayton online program. And I'm going to be doing readings of my own notes I've taken. These notes came from the Creswell and Guterman textbook, Educational Research Planning, Conducting and Evaluating Quantitative and Qualitative Research, as well as when I get to it, the APA piece for week 1. So I'm doing this mainly to help myself. I find if I repeat stuff a lot, it helps me memorize stuff. Maybe it'll help you, maybe it won't, but hopefully it does. So the instructor is Mary Ziskin, with my class's actual teacher being affiliated faculty Amy Reynolds. And again, my name is Daniel Blumberg. So we've got the course syllabus. Week 1 of the course, we have a reading in Creswell and Guterman, as well as a section out of the APA website, which I'll go over. And so I'm going to just dive right in. Now, I will say, I'll go through my notes. I'm reading them from how I've written them in. I might read them a second time because I have both them where I wrote them down and where I printed them. I typed them up as well to expand on some pieces. So there may be some overlap. Feel free to continue watching or not, up to you. So one of the pieces that's noted was we must be able to hear voices of community-facing organizations. There is a quote from Hollis in 2002. The classroom image of modern science is one of unprejudiced reason exploring an independent realm of nature. Nature is independent in the sense that it is as it is, whether or not human beings observe it, bring theories to bear on it, or interpret it in one way rather than another. And there were a couple of expanded writing components during the asynchronous learning concerning this. So I've got my written pieces up in there. I could potentially, if anyone's interested later, let you know what they are if you're watching this and you do not have access to that. So Hollis's The Schoolroom, the image of modern science is value neutral. Nature is independent. So nature being independent really doesn't matter in a theory what we do. Nature is what is, and it's going to continue to be nature. Now, you can make arguments there that we influence nature, but at the same time, we are nature. We're not just humans, we're a product of what nature has given us, being evolution. So nature is independent, how the world exists, the transition from the Dark Ages to the modern world, later challenged by the postmodern framework. So we also have an exchange about our knowledge. Wanted to know 2 to 3 sentences. What is science? So this was one of the writing components. What is science? Has a social life of its own and has meaning. What is research and what is scientific research? And I've got some definitions later on. Science is social. We think about the world around us and knowledge that is useful. Core elements of research are going to be the topics or problem, research questions and objectives, concepts, theories, hypotheses, and models, as well as research strategies, data sources, data collection, data analysis or reduction, inferences, research claims, and conclusions. Foundations, how do we conceive of the knowledge we are seeking? Methodological strategies, how will our process get us to our goals? And research design, methodological ideas and action, research design, navigating practical constraints and conventions. All right, so chapter 1, questions or thoughts. This is chapter 1 out of the textbook, of course. Questions or thoughts to be able to answer by the end of chapter 1. Should be able to define and describe the importance of educational research. So educational research is going to add to our knowledge, it's going to improve practice, and it's going to inform policy debates. By definition, it's a process of steps used to collect and analyze information to immerse our understanding of a topic or issue. Steps to pose a question, to collect data to answer the question, and present an answer to the question. Number 2, describe the 6 steps in the research process. So identifying a research problem, specifying the issue to study, develop a justification, and suggesting its importance. Number 2, reviewing the literature, locating summaries, books, journals, and publications on a topic, choosing what literature to include, summarizing it in a report. Part 3, specifying a purpose for the research, identifying major intent for study, and narrowing it into specific research questions or hypotheses. Step 4, collecting data, identifying selecting individuals for study, obtaining permission to study, and gathering information by asking people questions or observing them. Paramount is accurate data. Step 5, analyzing and interpreting data, drawing conclusions, representing it in tables, figures, and pictures to summarize and explaining it in words to answer the questions. Step 6, reporting and evaluating research, deciding on the audiences and structuring the report in a format acceptable to the audience, and then writing the report in a manner sensitive to all readers. So number 3, the third question you should be able to answer. Identify the characteristics of quantitative and qualitative research in the 6 steps. So when I get into the next reading through this, I'll give that in more detail. Number 4, identifying the types of research designs associated with quantitative and qualitative research. So qualitative research are going to be grounded theory designs, ethnographic designs, narrative designs. Quantitative research are going to be experimental designs, correlational designs, survey designs. And then there are mixed designs, which are the mixed method designs and action research designs. And I believe what we're going to be really focusing on going forward is going to be the action research designs, because that's what some of the future reading is going to be about. Question number 5, discuss important ethical issues in conducting research. So talk a little bit about this now and a little bit later. There have been a number of researches and projects that have been done that, to be frank, were just evil and wrong and should never have been done this way. So the Nazis performed very unethical experiments because they didn't view people as human. And the United States performed experiments on the Tuskegee residents where they knew that these residents either had or they intentionally infected with a sexually transmitted disease, and they just wanted to see what would happen if they let it run its course. They could have treated it, they could have cured them, they chose not to because they wanted to see how bad it would get. Okay, those are examples of unethical pieces. Talk more about that a little bit later. So also to recognize skills needed to design and conduct research. Skills being solving puzzles, lengthening attention span, learning to use library resources, writing, editing, and more writing. All right, so let me get into, as I promised, my written up notes here. So I'm reading through a second time because for me, again, repetition makes it easier for me to learn and remember. So maybe it'll do the same for you. So concerning the Hollis quote that I gave earlier, it's the schoolroom image of modern science, value neutrality, nature's independence, how the world exists, transition from the dark ages to the modern world, later challenged by postmodern frameworks. 2, science is social. We think about the world around us, and knowledge is useful. All right, so specific notes from the book itself again. Define and describe the importance of educational research. Educational research is a process of steps used to collect and analyze information to increase our understanding of a topic or issue. Part 1 is to pose a question. Part 2 is to collect data to answer the question. And Part 3 is to present an answer to the question. Part B of this is its importance, educational research, as it adds to our knowledge, it improves practice, and it informs policy debates. So describe the 6 steps in the research process. Step A, identifying a research problem. You have to have a problem that you're going to work to solve in order to do anything of value. So This is specifying the issue to study, develop a justification, and suggest its importance. Step B, reviewing the literature, locating summaries, books, journals, and publications on a topic, choosing what literature to include, and summarizing it in a report. Step C, specifying a purpose for research, identifying major intent for study and narrowing it into specific research questions or hypotheses. Step D, collecting data, identifying and selecting individuals for study, obtaining permission to study, and gathering information by asking people questions or observing them. Paramount is accurate data. Step E, analyzing and interpreting data, drawing conclusions, representing it in tables, figures, and pictures to summarize and explaining it in words to answer the question. Step F, reporting and evaluating research, deciding on audiences, structuring the report in a format acceptable to audience, and then writing the report in a manner sensitive to the readers. Number 3, identify the characteristics of quantitative and qualitative research in the 6 steps. In quantitative research, which is going to be on page 13 of the text, step 1 of that, some of these are multiple steps. So quantitative research, the characteristics describing a research problem through a description of trends or need, or a need for an explanation of the relationship among variables. Step 2 of this is providing a major role for the literature through suggesting the research questions to be asked and justifying the research problem and creating a need for the direction. Basically, it's your purpose statement and research questions or hypothesis of the study. Sorry about that. The hazards of doing this on my lunch break is people don't know I'm taking my lunch break and call. All right, so I'll repeat step 2 again, is providing a major role for the literature through suggesting the research questions to be asked and justifying the research problem and creating a need for the direction, purpose statement, and research questions or hypothesis of the study. Step 3, creating purpose statements, research questions, and hypotheses that are specific, narrow, measurable, and observable. Step 4, collecting numeric data from a large number of people using instruments with preset questions and responses. Step 5, analyzing trends, comparing groups or relating variables using statistical analysis and interpreting results by comparing them with prior predictions and past research. Step 6, writing the research report using standard fixed structures and evaluation criteria and taking an objective, unbiased approach. So now we'll go on to the qualitative research characteristics. Exploring a problem and developing a detailed understanding of a central phenomena. Step 2, having a literature review play a minor role but justify the problem. Step 3, stating the purpose and research questions in an open-ended way to capture the participants' experiences. Step 4, collecting data that is based on words, i.e. from interviews or images, examples from photos, from a small number of individuals so that the participants' views are obtained. Step 5, analyzing the data for descriptions and themes using text analysis and interpreting the larger meanings of the findings. Step 6, writing the report using flexible emerging structures and evaluative criteria, including the researcher's subjective reflexivity and bias. All right, so number 4, identify the types of research designs associated with quantitative and qualitative research. Quantitative research designs, experimental design, correlational design, and survey design. Qualitative research designs, ethnographic designs, narrative research designs. There is the combined quantitative and qualitative research designs. Those are the mixed method designs and action research designs. Again, action research designs, I think, is what we are going to be using more of. I could be wrong, but that is going to be my guess going forward. So, discuss the important ethical issues in conducting research. I have already mentioned about the Tuskegee and the Nazis. It is important that those to be studied must be able to provide consents. They must be able to withdraw their consent. They must not be harmed by the study, and potentially they can be compensated appropriately for their contribution. Now, there are potentially severe consequences if you do not do all of those. Your school can get penalized, and hence they can penalize you for failing to do any of that. You can, I'm assuming in theory, also be held privately liable, potentially, if you were to do something that you should not have done. So it's important to make sure you follow guidelines and you be a very good researcher in that you are ensuring that your research is all done whenever it's involving people with their consent. That's an absolute must. All right, so I'm going to switch over now to the APA section that is part of this presentation. So this section, there are 3 parts that we're supposed to go over for our readings for this week. Is the overview, paper elements, and paper organization. So this is the APA website, available at https://apa.org/a-style/basics-7e/pound/. All right, so very simple. You click on it. Overview. Welcome to this tutorial on the basis of the APA style. It was developed by social and behavioral scientists to help writers achieve clear, precise, and inclusive writing. By the end of this tutorial, you should be able to understand and implement the following basic elements of APA style: paper elements, format and organization, academic writing style, grammar and usage, bias-free language studies, mechanics of style, tables and figures, in-text citations, paraphrasing and quotations, and reference list formats and order. Paper elements. Many kinds of papers are written in APA style. For example, students commonly write essays, research papers, and reaction or response papers. The student papers always include the following elements. The title page. The student title page includes these elements: the paper title, the author name, the author affiliation, which for students is usually the department of the course and the university attended. Course number and name is shown on instructional materials. Instructor name as shown on instructional materials. Assignment due date, written out as November 14th, 2020, for example, or, well, that's really, there's no or because we're in the US. Page number 1 in the top right corner. Texts. The text is the author's main contribution. The text often begins with an introduction that addresses the importance of the work, contextualizes it within the existing literature, and states the aims of the work. Paragraphs containing the main arguments follow. The paper typically ends with a discussion or conclusion. Headings may be used to break the text into sections. Reference list. The reference list contains a list of the sources cited in the text. The reference list is discussed in more detail later in the tutorial. Okay, so paper elements. Student papers may also include other elements depending on the length and complexity of the paper, as well as the assignment's requirements. Abstract. The abstract is a brief, comprehensive summary of the contents of the paper. It's written as one paragraph and is usually a maximum of 250 words long. Footnotes are used to supplement or strengthen information in the text and to acknowledge copyright. Tables show numerical values or textual information arranged in columns and rows. Figures include bar charts, line graphs, drawings, maps, photographs, and any other visual display that is not a table. And the appendices. Appendices supplement the main content of the paper but are not integral to the text, i.e. detailed instructions to participants might appear in an appendix. Research papers and manuscripts to be submitted for publication may also include the following sections within the text. In the introduction, authors describe and review background literature on the topic of the paper and show why it warrants further investigation. In the methods section, authors describe in detail how the study was conducted. In the results, usually for quantitative studies, or findings, usually for qualitative studies section, authors summarize the data and the analysis performed on these data. In the discussion section, authors evaluate and interpret the implications of the results or findings with respect to the original hypothesis. Paper format. Consistent formatting allows readers to pay attention to the ideas in a work rather than the manner of their presentation. APA style provides rules for the basic setup of your paper, including the following areas. Page header. The page header appears in the top margin of every page of your paper and consists of a page number and, when required, a running header. The page header always includes a page number. Insert page numbers in the top right corner using the page numbering function of your word processing program. The page numbers should show on all pages. The title page is page number 1. Running header is shortened version of the title of the paper, typed in all capital letters. Running heads are required only for manuscripts being submitted for publication. Running heads are not required for student papers unless the instructor or institution requests them. When present, The running head appears aligned to the left in the top margin of every page, across from the right aligned page number. Many fonts are permitted in the APA paper style, including the following: sans serif fonts, 11-point Calibre, 11-point Arial, or 10-point Lucida sans Unicode. Serif fonts, 12-point Times New Roman, 11-point Georgia, or normal 10-point Computer Modern. Use the same font throughout your paper. Exceptions are to always use a sans serif font within figure images and to use the default font for automatically inserted footnotes, which is usually smaller than the text. Line spacing. Double space all parts of an APA style paper, including text, block quotations, and the reference list. However, entries in a table body and words in a figure image may be single space, 1.5 space, or double space, depending on which presentation is easiest to read. Add an extra blank line on the title page between the title and the byline, between the text and an embedded table or figure. Do not add extra blank lines above or below headings, even if the heading is at bottom of a page. Even if the heading is at the bottom of a page. Margins. Use 1-inch margins on every side of the paper. Paragraph alignment and indentation. Align text to the left margin, leave the right margin uneven or ragged. Indent the first line of each paragraph of text 0.5 inches from the left margin using the tab key or paragraph formatting function of your word processing program. Exceptions are as follows. The title page. Center all elements of the student title page except the page number. Section labels. Center section labels. Example, abstract or references. Abstract. Left align the first line of the abstract. Do not indent the first line. Block quotations. Indent a whole block quotation 1/2 inch from the left margin. Headings. Center level 1 headings. Left align level 2 and 3 headings. Indent level 4 headings and 5 headings like regular paragraphs. Tables and figures. Left align table and figure numbers, titles, and notes. Do not indent them. Reference list. Automatically apply a hanging indent of 1/2 inch to reference entries using the paragraph formatting function of your word processing program. Appendices. Center appendix labels and titles. Paper length depends on the assignment and may be measured by either word count or page count. Consult your instructor to determine the desired length for a student paper. All right, so I hope you found that helpful. Again, this was for EDU 990. Let me jump back to my PowerPoint slide for that. Research methods and design, University of Dayton instructor Mary Ziskin, affiliated faculty Amy Reynolds. If you find this useful or not, feel free to reach out, let me know. I likely will continue doing these as best I can as I have time to do them.